Welcome to the Pluralist Method.
Yep, I'm Dylan.
I'm Jeremy, and today we're going to be discussing a topic you could say is a bit explosive.
Man, that's even worse the second time. And again, I will announce that, we're going nuclear on this one.
Okay.
All right. Man, that was bad.
It's the second time around, even though y'all couldn't hear it.
It's pretty bad.
So our topic for today is what is the path, or is there a path, say, to global denuclearization?
Yes.
I'm going to get tongue-tied over,
Denuclearization, yes.
over that
Yeah.
all day.
It happens. And just a little background on this.
So kind of the global status concerning nuclear weapons to begin
Yes. Currently, the United States has around 6,180.
United States and Russia, kind of the top dogs here.
Yeah. Russia having about 6,490. Of course, Jeremy and I had discussed that Russia may not actually know of the location of some of their nuclear weapons, so that could be an issue.
After the fall of the USSR, it kind of became...
There were a lot of issues with that, actually, and just a small side comment. Apparently, the United States was played a pivotal role in flooding the market with fake nuclear weapons, so that they could decrease the likelihood of individuals successfully selling nuclear arms on the black market back in the 80s and 90s. So that's a fun little tidbit there. But back to the global state of affairs regarding nukes. The United Kingdom has about 200. France has around 300. Israel has about 90. Pakistan around 160. India 140. China 290. And then North Korea has around 30.
And those are just the estimates.
Yes, and this is according to the Arms Control Association. If y'all want to learn more about this topic, y'all can go over there. They seem to have a pretty extensive understanding of it. Hence, it is kind of the foundation of their organization. So I'd hope they would.
And of course, North Korea and Israel are kind of a bit unsure on those numbers.
Yes.
It's a contentious issue on the amount that North Korea actually has, and of course Israel tends to deny that they hold any nuclear weapons. But
yes, and North Korea, there's an issue regarding their missile systems as well.
True. Yeah.
So
do they actually have the delivery method?
Yes. So while you may actually have nuclear weapons, they're kind of useless if you can't actually get them to a place. I mean, you could always, I guess, send someone down, but you'd get shot down.
It's pretty simple to make something as like a gravity bomb that would just, you're essentially chucking it out of a plane with some sort of mechanism, very little targeting, and then something to kind of
it would be
slow its decline.
It would be kind of difficult to I guess, accomplish successfully that kind of mission these days. So having
especially with North Korea's status, I mean.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. People are watching them like hawks. But actually, it'd be pretty interesting to see them try. They have basically an old school B-52 bomber trying just flying down.
It opens up the door and shoots this bomb out of the side.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be.
It doesn't even detonate. The detonation device doesn't even trigger. Go off.
Oh, that would be rough. But also a little more history regarding this. There are a couple of treaties. If you want to go over a couple of them regarding non-proliferation and then potential arms control.
I mean, there's dozens of treaties concerning arms control in
usually
general.
Bilateral treaties, but the main one will be focusing on will be the non-proliferation treaty. Yes,
NPT.
NPT.
And its objective is kind of prevent the spread of weapons, of nuclear weapons, and weapon technology, and kind of promote cooperation and encourage peaceful uses of nuclear technology.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say peaceful uses of nuclear weapons. We want to use our nuclear weapons
a peaceful
peacefully.
Nuclear war.
Yes, exactly. These are peace
They're
bombs.
basically just shooting bombs into no man's land, killing off dozens of wildlife species.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And promote the cooperation uses of peaceful uses of nuclear energy and nuclear technology.
And that
and
actually
then to further the goal of kind of nuclear disarmament.
If I'm correct in this, the NPT also established a system where, or an organization that kind of oversees nuclear weapons and nuclear material refinement, and that would be the IAEA, correct? Am I saying that right? It's the
yes.
I don't know. I don't even know what the acronym stands for.
Are you talking about the International Atomic Energy Agency?
That is absolutely it.
As far as, yes, like that was made, their role kind of in the Iran deal, which we'll touch on in a moment, was to sort of ensure that the inspection of the facilities goes on kind of, confirm that they are only using their nuclear technology to, for energy uses as far as not continued enrichment and whatnot.
And there are, within the NPT, we're just going to keep calling it that from now on because I do not want to continuously say non-proliferation. It's too much of a tongue twister. But in addition to that, the NPT actually creates a foundation for the IAEA to inspect all of the member countries' nuclear facilities at certain times, and there are different conditions upon each country. Some countries will be inspected more than others, depending on global confidence in their
status in the world.
Yes, and that's pretty important to note. In all honesty, you'll see again during the Iran deal, Iran was going to be, or at least for the time that we were under a member of that treaty, Iran was the most heavily inspected country of all of the other members.
Naturally.
Yeah, which I mean, it does stand to reason, and it's good to have that oversight there because that part of the world is prone, or at least that country is quite prone to regimes. Let's just leave it at that.
Especially their tendencies to kind of aggressively push for continued enrichment of uranium and turning towards nuclear weapons. You kind of, you have to have that oversight to sort of, if they're expected to get what they want out of the deal, you need to get something in return. And we'll discuss that further in just a moment here, but I wanted to briefly touch on what you had placed in here on the CTBT, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty.
One of the other
treaties.
You
wanted to discuss that a little bit?
Sure. So this, unlike the Non-Proliferation Treaty, dang, that's rough. Unlike
proliferation.
Unlike the NPT, which actually prevents any new spreading of nuclear weapons, the CTBT, or Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, would prevent the further refinement of nuclear weapons, or it would prevent other countries from testing weapons as well, and trying to gain their own nuclear capabilities. And at the moment, there are, I believe, 181 members have signed. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the number on hand.
But we have a few holdouts.
Yes, there are a few holdouts. Under the CTBT, there are 44 specific countries that need to ratify this treaty to make it effective. And of those 44 countries, 8 have not signed it. And this is also according to the Arms Control Association. Those countries that have yet to ratify this treaty are the United States, China, Pakistan, Israel, Egypt, India, Iran, and North Korea.
Naturally.
Yes. I mean, it kind of stands to reason. I mean, of the individuals with, or the state, the nation states that have nuclear capabilities, these countries are there are a few among these countries that kind of, it seemed pretty obvious that they'd be a little bit more reluctant to sign a treaty like this.
Brief tangent, but I'm curious on your thoughts on why the U.S. hasn't.
The U.S. hasn't because China hasn't, and China hasn't because the U.S. hasn't.
So sort of.
And India hasn't because China hasn't, and North Korea hasn't because, well, yeah, it's basically a pissing contest. Okay. Like, they are really trying to
just hold the gun to each other's head.
Yes,
and kill someone.
Exactly.
Actually, what's the?
It reminds me
pencil
of
to paper. Pen to paper.
It reminds me of the episode of The Office when they were playing the murder mystery game at the end, when they're like, "I didn't do it." Yeah, it was very much like that, and then they all killed each other.
In that scenario, which country, which character is the U.S.?
Oh, we are Michael Scott. There you go. That's rough. But China's white, so that's cool.
And who's Pam?
Pam is actually
North Korea.
Pam is not North Korea. Pam might be Israel, in all honesty, when you think about it. Because I mean, of those countries, Israel would probably be, or could be the most likely to. Well, actually, no, I can't say that. I was going to make the statement that Israel would be the most likely to sign the CTBT next, but my reasoning is flawed because the fact that they're a Middle Eastern country and they have so many countries either around them either gunning for nuclear power or they're surrounded by countries that already have nuclear capabilities. It's probably not going to be.
Not to mention, I mean, Israel usually plays that card as kind of being them against the world over in the U.S. and the Middle East. Excuse me.
Yes, they are the beacon of hope in many ways. Kind of, yes, which
everyone is gunning against them.
I mean, whatever your opinion on Israel is, I don't. I personally would need to get a master's degree before I understand some of the history regarding the Middle East and some of the issues over there. So I do not want to get into that.
And we'll save that for another day.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But anyway, the reason we actually are getting into this topic in the first place is because of the United States recent attempts to renegotiate our treaty with Iran. Yes. Let's. Well, I want to call it that.
Let's briefly touch on what the original Iran deal was. Mm-hmm. Just a brief overview. So there was a restriction on the enrichment of uranium
and a reduction in already enriched.
Stockpile,
yes.
Stockpile, yes.
Because originally they had enough enriched uranium and enriched nuclear material, raw material, to make quite a few nuclear weapons.
I think it was by 98%. It was reduced.
Yes, we reduced. It was reduced to maybe the capability of almost creating one. If I'm remembering correctly, it's been a little bit since I've read the article on this, but
and then of course the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, which we discussed earlier, they have access to sort of monitor their facilities and reassure the rest of the world that they are keeping up on their.
And they're actually deal. You'll probably remember a bit of a controversy when the deal was first signed. There were some critics saying that it wasn't strict enough on monitoring Iran's stockpiles and whether or not they were holding up to their end of the bargain.
I've heard a lot of people kind of pose that argument that they could sort of skirt around the watchful eyes of the agency and the UN, the United States in general.
Yes, the issue with that is the alternative would have been actually having United States troops doing that, and that there were pretty staunch opponents of that on the Iranian side, which I mean stands to reason. A deal would not have gone through if the United States tried to push, I guess, oversight by the United States.
Yeah, that's taking things to a whole nother level.
Yes, that borders on infiltration of another nation state, and that's really rough. And I mean, those same critics are prone to also say that we should not be in other countries or involved in their affairs. So it's kind of it is kind of contradictory there. So in that event, you kind of want an independent organization that has a lot of credibility. Sure. I mean, it reports to the United Nations.
It's not like you and the schmo down the block and come over there and
Exactly. And it also reports to the Security Council, the IAEA. But be that as it may, it's also it also should be understood that, again, Iran was the most heavily, I guess, watched as far as the countries being observed for nuclear enrichment.
Sure.
So, I mean, the IAEA did a pretty dang good job, in all honesty.
And, of course, in exchange, they had the lifting of UN Security Council, U.S. and European Union sanctions.
Yes, which
they got out of the deal.
Which actually opened their market up quite a bit. Yes. And there's again, you'll hear other critics saying, I'm sorry, I'm very much in favor of the Iranian nuclear deal, being that it does have flaws. I don't want anyone to get me wrong on that, but it's a pretty dang good deal. There were some critics stating that we basically gave money to Iran, but in all honesty, that is incorrect.
Yes, I've heard this argument.
Yes, the opening of the markets allowed the Iranian government and companies within Iran to sell their products internationally without sanctions there, and then they increased their revenue. It was their money to begin with because they sold those products.
That kind of got twisted into coming across as a talking point, as if we just gave Iran some sort of funds.
That is absolutely untrue.
Yes, that is not true.
But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that one.
Anyways, no, I also agree. I think it was a step in the right direction. I think there were some flaws within it. But
well, it was a sunset deal.
Yeah, at the time, it's kind of what needed to be put in place, and I think as of recently, since they went back on that deal, I think that was not the greatest of decisions.
Yes, hindsight being what it is, I mean, we can safely say that the United States membership in that treaty, which actually was not a bilateral treaty. There were other European organizations within that treaty as well. But the United States membership in that treaty, that agreement, was a good thing because right now we are seeing an increase in intensity as in regards to hostilities from Iran. And of course, we are reposturing ourselves
kind of have
quite
the
aggressively.
Rest of the European Union kind of scrambling to make something happen with the shambles that remain.
Yeah, in fact, actually, Iran basically stated that that they would like to stay in the deal, but they would need some method to, I guess, assuage the impact that the United States has on or placed on their markets. So they need even freer markets within Europe, basically, is what they're going for. I don't know how free the trade is between Iran and the rest of the European Union.
Would you say that it actually gave them more leverage?
Iran?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, No, it gave them the ability to renegotiate with the EU, which in turn will...
Without the U.S.
Without the U.S. Now, if the United States is not a part of this, then there are some other implications that have to be addressed.
Sure.
And those implications, I mean, it's basically the view that the United States had an opportunity to prevent the further nuclearization of the world, and they were unable to do that, and the EU kind of swooped in and was able to steal that spotlight. So it makes us look ineffective as far as a foreign power or as a world power is concerned. That's kind of rough in all honesty, because there are some other things there.
All right. So I think we should kind of move on to the proposal of our main question before we get too far down the rabbit hole and the Iran deal. Before we move on, I wanted to briefly mention, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I wanted to briefly mention we have a tip jar for donations and tips in the description. If anybody wants to help us out and toss a
little love our way,
feel free to. We also have a Twitter.
Yes.
And I'll mention this again at the end of the show. But you can follow us on there.
I will state that I made my very first tweet ever in my entire life earlier this week.
He's not a tweeter.
No, I am not a social media.
You really made good use of that increased character count.
Oh, hey man. Yeah, everyone was like ragging me on the wordiness of my post.
But anyways, that's just a brief thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
We'll move on to our main question and get into the hypotheticals.
Yes.
So more on our turf as opposed to having to
to go through the history of the treaties and whatnot.
And we can sort of come up with our own ideas.
We'll be within our own comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the main question we have today is there a path to global denuclearization?
Well, I actually...
And here's the answer.
Yes. The answer is no. 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 Hypothetically, there are actually quite a few different possibilities to denuclearize. The easiest way, which I spoke to you a little bit about earlier this week, which is kind of the idealistic way in which everyone sees the world as, it's all
Everyone
rainbows.
Gathers hands and says kumbaya.
Exactly. It's all rainbows and unicorns and yeah, it's wonderful, and we all get lollipops at the end, and I love it. And that method would be every country that currently has nuclear weapons comes together in a single location and has an event where one at a time or in some kind of method, everyone brings all their nuclear weapons and they all just disarm them there and come up with an organization to safely dispose of them, or they all come together and dispose of them there. The issue with that is...
to begin with, it sounds very idealistic. I mean,
it is incredibly idealistic.
Imagine this scene where you have the U.S. and Russia with
the leaders of all countries just coming with their stockpile of weapons.
Plus, where would this take place?
Yes, and then there's the issue of whether or not any countries have lost any of their nuclear arms. And whether or not nation states would trust other nation states to bring all of their nuclear weapons. Sure. So there are...
What assurance do you have that,
Yes.
You didn't
the numbers...
hide a few in your closet before you left.
Exactly. The numbers we gave regarding the number of nuclear weapons each country had were only estimates.
Sure.
I don't think anyone except for their own nation state can be sure how many weapons they currently have stockpiled. So that is kind of an issue there. So you'd have to come up with some way of verification, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, near impossible.
Yeah, so realistically, that's out of the question.
Not to mention, I mean, how long is it going to take for the U.S. and Russia?
Exactly.
These other states, nation states, might be, done
that.
within.
Oh yeah, it'll take us a few weeks to like disarm all of ours, and you got India and Pakistan and North Korea just like it's like hurry up already. No, it just won't work. Now there are some other ways that you could possibly go about doing this, and this is where I want to get into whether or not we're going to distinguish between denuclearization, or are we just going to talk, or are we also allowed to go into prevention or increased prevention of the use of nuclear weapons? Are we going with just reducing the number?
As far as
our primary question.
Well, I mean, let's stick with the primary question.
Okay, because there are other ways in which you could ensure countries don't attack the other another country, and I mean that's been done in the past.
Sure, I mean you could say the entire Cold War was based around that, but
100%.
The solution to that was to continue to increase your stockpile.
Oh yeah, that's one example. I mean, other example or other methods of kind of doing that would be through the economy. There is a theory out there that increasing trade relations between countries reduces the risk of war in general.
Sure.
So I mean that just on its own could be quite helpful. So the fact that, and I mean, it stands to reason that the reason for that theory to be in place in the first place is, I guess, using Iran as an example. Mm-hmm. You freeing up their markets so that they can grow as an economy and kind of catch up with the world as kind of an industrialized power. There'll be less, I guess, disillusioned, which I mean could
running
reduce
off of that. How would you, I guess, incentivize certain countries such as the U.S., Russia, some of the European countries, such as France and the UK? How would you sort of incentivize them to walk down that path
of denuclearizing? Mm-hmm. So if we're veering away from the economic portion.
Well, that's why
I'm
saying
how would
kind
you?
Of like, yeah.
Okay, economically, well, the United Kingdom, France, and I believe they're the only two that are currently within the EU. So they would not, they will not ever use those weapons on each other. Until Brexit. That date, isn't that October?
Ooh, hot take.
Yeah. Well, it won't happen on like.
This is the real reason for Brexit.
Yeah. The UK leaves the UK leaves the EU and immediately nuclear war happens.
Guess what,
France?
It's great. We're still not over it.
Screw you, France. Isn't that the War of the Roses was?
I mean, pretty much throughout the.
What? 16
from about
I don't know, man.
900 till the 1800s.
Dude, it was
there's
rough.
Too many to count. You've got the 100 Years' War. You've got the 30 Years' War. I mean.
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad. So that aside, there may be some grudges there. We'll see. But no. So at the moment, they're not going to attack each other. As far as China and North Korea are concerned, they will not attack each other. China is actually trying to proliferate at the moment. They are actually attempting to assist North Korea in developing nuclear weapons. By doing so, they would gain another ally that has that capability, which would substantially increase their, I guess, their alliance's stockpile of weapons. Of course, you have to also consider whether or not China has economic investments in any of these other countries that have nuclear weapons through the Belt and Road Initiative. So I believe India is quite resistant to investment from China, but there may be some, and Pakistan might also have some investment from China. I'm not 100% sure. That would have to be verified.
What about a country like the U.S.? What kind of incentives could be provided to them?
I'm actually not sure.
Or are they sort of taking lead dog on this in this scenario?
In this case, the United States would actually have to they'd have to create better relations with Pakistan first off, because there are some issues there. I'd have to personally brush up on our trade agreements with India, because I don't know much about that at all. I'm pretty sure it's not a complete free market there. I wouldn't imagine it to be so on either side. As far as China is concerned, actually, here's my hot take. If the United States and China can create a fair trade agreement that is based on I guess free markets, and they reduce all the sanctions that we're putting on each other, that will be a grand step towards denuclearization. If you have those trade agreements, the two biggest
and do you think China could
powers
have the kind of influence to incentivize the U.S. to denuclearize?
Oh, 100%. Of the countries that have, of the countries that have nuclear weapons, China, I believe, is the only one that is
has leverage over the US.
Yes, that is outproducing us as far as GDP per not per capita, but just overall GDP,
which provides the leverage.
Yes, exactly. They are purchasing a lot more from us than we are from them, and that's kind of a big deal. Or actually, no, we are purchasing a lot more from them than they are from us, is what I meant to say. But that is a big deal. That actually allows China to, and China actually has the privilege of, I guess, stunting our economy if they so choose, and may have a heavier impact on our economy than we really think. A lot of analysts, or a good number of analysts, actually believe that we will be able to stunt China, or it will be mutually assured destruction, but we will barely win, I guess, if you want to call it winning. There are others who actually believe that due to the fact that China is exporting so much more than they're importing from the United States, they will have a larger impact and stunt the United States' growth of their economy. Also, China will, I think, are in a position of creating alternative supply chains that, just due to the fact that they're not as established, they will be a lot more flexible and adaptable in that sense. So for them, it could just be more of a hiccup, but for us, it could be really dangerous. Our supply chains are much more entrenched as far as global supply chains are concerned. I know that we are getting quite a bit from China, and actually the Center for Foreign Relations, I believe it was the Center for Foreign Relations, produced an article actually showing trends for how much the United States was getting, how much stuff the United States was getting from China. And we hit a new record in 2018, despite the fucking tariffs, which is insane. No, it absolutely did not. I was, or at least the deficit increased. I don't want to say the number of products increased, but the deficit increased, which is something we should take account of. It's a good little signifier. if not the only one.
Moving away from the economic side of things, do you think there's any other path that might be taken? And I wanted to ask, do you think kind of this is something that the United States has to take a lead on?
I think the countries that have weapons in the thousands probably should be the ones taking the
initiative.
Should be the ones taking that initiative. I honestly don't have too much faith in Russia-United States relations. So being that that being the case, I don't think that there is a method in which countries will come together and basically say, all right, we're going to end it now. We are going to reduce the number of weapons we have.
Do you think by one country possibly taking an initiative, it sort of puts them in a worse position?
Yeah.
With leverage over other countries, since if they do take the initiative, like, okay, we're going to bilaterally kind of reduce our stockpiles.
Actually,
like the U.S., the U.K., or France, but you don't have these other countries sort of.
It depends on how they do it.
It's almost like you're decreasing the sort of
your leverage over them.
Yeah. I hate to take kind of a Cold War tactic there, but I mean.
Yes. There is. It depends on how you do it. So here's what I've actually thought of as the only realistic way of doing this, and it could truly backfire.
Okay.
So basically, if the United States were going to take initiative and say we're going to get rid of all of our nuclear weapons, and they make a big show of it, what they would have to do is they'd have to make this look like it's the easiest thing in the world. What you want to do is create, and what you could do is create chatter, basically stating that the United States has a new weapon that makes nuclear weapons obsolete. Yes, exactly. So basically, you're
going
increasing
off on the fringes here.
What?
Going off on the fringes.
No. They wouldn't actually have to create.
Well, I know. That's
the weapon.
Even still.
But I mean, it wouldn't be extraordinarily difficult to do. In all honesty, at least getting intelligence to other countries should not be that difficult. Most people have their ears to the ground and they're kind of listening.
Sure.
You got to make it look like it's not too easy, or it wasn't too easy for them to get that information. You got to make sure other countries get you don't want other countries to get suspicious. But in doing so, you could,
let's call it a reverse Cold War.
Yes, but basically by doing that and then going back to the table to the other country and says, we've done it, now y'all do it too. And of course, you'll probably get from certain countries, or else what? And then I don't know what happens then. You'd have to really fucking bluff. You basically have to convince leaders of the other countries that it's not in their best interests to have nuclear weapons. Because of
the reasoning being
this
mysterious all-powerful weapon that would
and I don't know what weapon would do that. I mean, got like the fucking idea of the laser satellite laser thing
involving like space technology
yes,
sort of pinpoint target cities or nations from like space. I think that would be or some sort of method that, I believe I saw something discussing like antimatter kind of devices as a form beyond like thermonuclear.
That's rough.
And I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was a some sort of device that could kind of have the ability to sort of spread nuclear fallout without having the destruction, being able to sort of eliminate the population of countries without actually destroying the infrastructure.
Oh.
But anyway,
that would be that would be quite interesting. That's scary as hell. That's like a nightmare.
I mean, that kind of goes into chemical weapons.
Yeah.
Sort of their
Yeah,
uses.
chemical weapons would do that. Well, I mean, chemical weapons also have the issue of having a half-life in that area, and then there may be a period of time where the location is not able to be inhabited by the human race, which, I mean, from what I understand, the other weapon, or this hypothetical weapon, would be able to wipe out the humans in that population, but provide
But no, you would still have nuclear fallout within the...
Oh, so okay, I thought you said the infrastructure would remain.
Well, the infrastructure as far as the destruction wouldn't exist, but you would have the nuclear fallout, which would...
Oh, yeah, okay. So it'd still make it uninhabitable.
Yes,
okay.
Destroy the population, but maintain the explosivity of the devices in there, let's say.
Fun. Anyways,
let's not get too
but yeah, so bluffing is the only thing I could think of, unfortunately, unless we create another weapon that makes nuclear weapons kind of insignificant.
But you could argue that would just lead to another situation where it's sort of a arms race to whoever can stockpile these or have the...
And actually, you could argue that the technology race that we are having between the United States, China, all of Europe, and Russia, basically that is the next arms race. Whoever can get the next technology. I mean, China's getting 5G was pretty significant. They're basically... one of their companies was the developers, so I mean that's pretty significant. But other than that, I mean, we are still the leader of pharmaceuticals, medical, military weapons. We are kind of leaders in everything else. So hopefully we will win that next this technological race. Because, I mean, whatever new technology we create will be utilized in some way for military use.
And do you think that perhaps might lead to nuclear weapons kind of becoming obsolete in their use?
At some point, we're likely to be like a century away from that at the earliest. Well, actually, no. It'll likely happen with the advent of integrated like automation, like when automation is integrated to a large portion of the human life, that's when you'll probably see some sort of technology that will make nuclear weapons kind of obsolete and without purpose. And in addition to that, actually, you'll also see less desire to use those sort of weapons, because once automation is, I guess, incorporated into the daily human life, there should be less, I guess, struggle and strife kind of things happening. And I mean, the whole reason people, or the primary reason people tend to become disillusioned and go to war is because of, in some form, economic or I guess industrial reasons, power differentials.
Yeah, kind of grievances with the current power structure.
Yes.
Sort of, they feel another country might have over them.
Exactly. So it's that kind of fear the fear of having another country lording their power over you, I think, is a
in a grim scenario. Do you think that, let's say,
I think I know where you're coming with this question. I don't
think so.
Okay.
If one country sort of, let's say, falls behind, in this technological race, do you think they might, if they have access to nuclear weapons, do you think they might use those as kind of like a kill switch, sort of?
It depends on how it's done and what you mean, because there will be eventually there will be. Sorry, let me back up. Eventually, the power differential between countries will not be as perceptible between individuals. At least that's my belief. I think within the next century, you'll see places like the continents actually, South America. You'll see Africa, all industrializing very, very rapidly.
I agree.
And many of those countries will be utilizing, I guess, a catch-up economy strategy, which will allow them to industrialize at the rate Vietnam did and China did within this past century. And they called Vietnam kind of stopped at a middle income spot, but China is still growing at a pretty significant rate to the point where now their GDP outpaces our own.
They're looking to bring their entire poverty, lower income class up into the middle class.
Exactly.
The goal they've set for themselves.
Yes, which is something, I mean, we did in the 1950s, or that's what we were doing heavily in the actually even earlier than that, you could probably say, but it happened on a large scale where we've kind of the 50s were where we succeeded in creating a great middle class, and then of course now we see more power differences as far as
let's say something like, I mean,
concerned.
this is a little bit crazy and out there, but let's say like you have countries such as, like, let's say the US, and they sort of see these other countries surpassing them as far as economic growth, and of course this could stall and kind of in a situation where every country is sort of more on a level playing field. But like, let's say they see another country sort of surpassing them, they sort of use that as sort of a pendulum over that other country. Do you think that would be a possibility, or do you think that's too aggressive of a tactic and would never really be used nowadays?
Some of these sentiments are actually building at this moment. There are individuals who absolutely abhor the fact that China is I guess overall wealthier than us, or I do want to specify this is not per capita. Like, this is just overall gross domestic product. But that being the case, eventually you'll see the most populous countries being the most powerful as far as economy goes. You'll see places, if population trends continue, you'll see places like China and India being the most powerful countries in the world, just because as the technology increases in those areas and they catch up with us, the fact that they have more people and the fact that they will be eventually will produce at about the same rate as Americans do, they will produce at a higher rate. I mean, that stands to reason. It's simple math. And due to the fact that that's the case, there are some sentiments in
of course,
different
as these
political
countries
parties
tend to
that
move into the first world concept of a country, their populations might not necessarily decrease, but
they stall.
Will
yes,
fizzle
but
out.
at this moment, I mean, unless
Just based on what they have.
yes. But at this moment, even if they stall, they will still have a larger
it's not
population.
Like they're going to kill off large swaths of people
exactly.
when they reach it.
Now, China did have the single child thing, which that actually will come to bite them in the ass
I believe
in the
India
future.
will take them over as far as total population.
If they haven't already.
No, they haven't. No,
not
I
yet.
think it's not until around, I believe, 2025, 2030. Eventually they will finally surpass China as far as total population.
Yeah, China will, within the next couple of decades, see what Japan saw, or they may see what Japan saw
maybe a little more
early.
in the future, but yeah, I could see that possibly
yes, because they're going to end up having a population that is much older, which is much larger than the younger population. And, of course, the welfare system may buckle under the burden of such a large population. I mean, the United States saw that with baby boomers. And
sure, I mean, we're seeing that right now.
Yeah, I mean, yay. But That being the case, I actually don't know how I got talking about. We were talking about the technology. So
as far as another country
with those,
surpassing.
with those sentiments already there, it's possible that we elect a member that holds one of those sentiments and may react poorly. I don't think it'll be through nuclear weapons. It may be through technological. Well, actually, I want to verify. So in this instance, are the other countries more technologically advanced as well?
For the most part, yeah. As far as we've been discussing, they've
surpassed us,
and they kind of, the U.S. I guess is hoping to sort of hold on to the power they sort of have.
Then that it's possible, yes. Then yeah,
but it would probably have to a pretty extreme candidate, president, or sort of overall.
Yes, there'd also have to be a very significant power differential as well between the United States and these other countries as far as the technological
Not necessarily.
difference.
I'm saying as far as like they see them surpassing, and it's kind of like to assure that doesn't happen because they kind of see that growth continue and they're hoping to.
No, I don't
hold their place. You don't think they would?
No, not through nuclear weapons because
I think that would only take place as long as.
No, if they are not technologically more diverse than us or more superior than us.
Well, they would be.
Well, you're saying. You're talking about two things. First, you were saying if they were in the process of becoming more.
Well, let me correct my statement. I'm saying kind of we're on a. It's not where we are now, but we're kind of on a level playing field, and they're beginning to move beyond, sort of take that world dominance.
Actually,
that the U.S. has held, and the U.S. is trying to hold on to that power.
They only
top dog.
They only have dominance in certain areas, and a very limited area. I'm actually pretty certain that the United States will remain the global or a global superpower for at least the next century or two, barring any big hiccups or I guess destruction of economies. China, their system actually works in such a way that I don't think that they will, that while they are producing more as far as global GDP, they're not as efficient as us. And I don't think they will reach our efficiency level for a few more decades at least. Once they do hit that, they're going to have to also contend with what we spoke with last time on the podcast, social liberalization. As the individuals in the country have access to more items that give them kind of economic freedoms, like luxury things, they will begin to want more social liberal freedoms as well. I think that's just a natural progression. I know it hasn't happened yet, and theorists have consistently said that it's going to happen, but I truly think that that's going to be the case.
I guess where I'm kind of coming at this is, I mean, you look at the past century, the 1900s, and at that time, that's when the U.S. sort of came into power as being the top dog, particularly after World War II. You could say within the century, another country could kind of take that step over them. And, I mean, at the time, nuclear weapons may still be an issue. Do you think theoretically if that were to happen?
Yeah, I don't
think that would.
So if the if this is the case, like they're in the process of becoming more technologically advanced, then I think that what you would more likely see is the United States trying to assert their dominance through technology. So they would try to utilize some sort of
another aspect of the Cold War.
Yes,
with the
they would try.
race.
They'd try to use cyber warfare rather than nuclear warfare. Now, in the event that we have already been surpassed by a lot, and the power differential is pretty large, then I can see the United States being or at least threatening nuclear war if they aren't heard. Because there may be a global kind of sentiment that, yes, we were once these big, powerful people, and now no one in the world is listening to us. And I mean, they may elect a political leader that holds that sentiment that will try to negotiate using the threat of nuclear weapons. Our also global confidence in our government will be reduced quite a bit, and we may see a destabilization in our global economy to the point to where we may see a civil war.
It would just
at that
implode
point.
in on itself, and that
Yeah.
wouldn't even be an issue.
Exactly. And then you may see more like terrorist cells kind of thing happening. But this is in like a in a world where there isn't a leveling out, where one country broadly surpasses, or a group of countries broadly surpasses these other countries.
Sure.
Those other countries will start to feel disillusioned. I mean, you see that in the Middle East right now. I think a lot of those sentiments actually stem from the fact that there are citizens that see these global powers in Europe and in the United States that are living luxurious lives, and combining that with certain extremist religious sentiments, that kind of mixes as
along with seeing these Western powers sort of meddling within their affairs
exactly
in the Middle East
and propping up regimes that only harm the citizen base further. That creates a system that is ripe for terrorism,
or it leads to a system where you have something like Iran, where they're seen to assure they stay in control, kind of. They have a nuclear weapon to sort of assure
their seat at the table.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I can see something like that happening. I don't think it would actually be used.
Fair enough.
In that case, but yeah, that's my hot take on that. What do you think?
That's not.
Do you
agree
with
that?
About
too much. I mean, I think that does make it. I think it is a pretty extreme idea that somebody would come into power for that. I have to say it's a good thing we didn't have nuclear weapons around, pre, let's say, 1900s industrial revolution, because I think that kind of idea would have been a lot more.
Oh yes, and I mean, you wouldn't have had the governmental structure wasn't nearly as cohesive, even in powerful nation states.
You would have one,
you would have a single faction,
city-state, or one, sort of ruler kind of grabbing hold of that power and then just instantly using that to obliterate another.
Yeah, that would. Oh my gosh, that would be terrifying.
So I have a few questions here I wanted to
throw
at you. We've already covered a few of these things, but I just wanted to flush them out a little more. I wanted to ask, is it even possible to fully denuclearize without reaching kind of global unity?
No. I personally don't think so. Or bluff aside, I don't think that it'll happen. Or at least, I'd say maybe not global unity, but we might be able to see it through regional unity. So we are seeing certain countries kind of forming blocks of power, where you have the European Union as a block of power there. You have China kind of extending its power to South Asia, Southeast Asia, and even parts of Africa, kind of creating a block of power. Africa itself is just recently actually created, or parts of Africa, some countries have created trade agreements, and it's in the process of ratification within Africa, which has not happened that much.
Sure.
I mean, that's a huge fucking deal.
So it's very beneficial for
I mean, that's
the countries that would be on that.
Absolutely. And that'll also ensure resource sharing, and just due to the basic fact that the resources are so vast in a lot of these countries, they could come into to being the next manufacturing hub, like you saw China kind of being in the 90s, 80s, 90s kind of era, and maybe even into the early 2000s. Definitely into the early 2000s. Also, I mean, you had, like, Vietnam as a manufacturing hub as well for a little while. And then, of course, you have the United States along with Canada and Mexico being its own hub, and we may actually extend a little further into South America, certain countries there. And then you may actually see, I don't know much about the trade between countries in South America. So I don't know what the issue or what their cohesion is as far as trade is concerned. But if we got into a situation where regionally we had these big blocks of power, we may at first see a increase in I guess a threat of nuclear war just between these large blocks.
That was where I was going to go with my next question.
Yes, you'd probably see that at first, and then as they become, I guess, two things could happen. They could all become like self-contained bubbles, or they could have loose cohesion between the regions that would create more difficulty regarding nuclear weapons. But just due to the fact that this won't happen for decades, it's very likely that we have an alternative to nuclear weapons in the first place. So.
And that is where kind of my next question was going to lead, is discussed this before, but is globalism,
yes,
a necessary first step?
I
guess you've already pretty much covered that. But.
Yeah. I think the beginnings of globalism will be the first step towards it, and that will be done through the economy mostly and trade. As well as human rights, I guess general human rights freedoms, as long as they're sustained as well within the entire world. Then I think you can see some form of denuclearization to form. Yeah, I mean that's all the answer I have at the moment.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We haven't touched on this yet, so I wanted to bring it up. But how do we retain the use of nuclear power while continuing these denuclearization efforts?
How do we retain them?
What, like us personally?
No, like the United States.
United States and the world.
Retain. So how do we keep nuclear weapons while trying to get other countries?
Nuclear power.
How do we retain nuclear
power?
Okay. So I thought you were stating how can we keep our weapons, but maybe
that would probably be a better way of putting it. Nuclear
okay,
energy.
I thought you were saying
yes.
how can we get these other countries to get rid of their shit?
I'm sure the U.S. would love to.
Yeah, there are.
Sorry, that's a better way of putting nuclear energy.
Actually, that's a really good question, and I do not have the answer.
That kind of goes into
I've been contending
field where
I've been contending with this quite a bit myself, because I got to thinking you need an expansion of the IAEA to a degree to where they actually have offices or not offices, but I guess hubs in each country that has weapon or has nuclear energy capability, and there has to be pretty significant monitoring on a regular basis. And basically, any country's nuclear energy should be loosely regulated, or maybe even strictly regulated by the IAEA. So there'd have to be an expansion of their powers overall, and all the countries would have to agree to that. But that would also give that organization immense power to begin with as well.
I was about to say, it kind of leads into you have this organization where people might feel this foreign power is sort of meddling in their energy programs.
Absolutely.
state.
Especially
affairs.
any country that wants to, that may be becoming more industrialized and may want to get into nuclear energy. I'm sure there would have to be an individual process in which...
We got the dog coming in.
Oh, yeah.
The dog's coming in.
Yeah, I'm sure there would have to be some sort of process for, I guess, initiating first, like groundbreaking, not groundbreaking, or breaking ground on nuclear energy. So they would have a say-so in who's allowed to have that form of energy to begin with. But again, that may not be as much of a problem if we see an increase in the usage of alternative energy methods, even away from not only fossil fuels but nuclear energy as well. I don't know exactly what would replace that at the moment. There's quite a few different options out there. None of them are as efficient as they need to be to make that change or I guess sustainable. So I don't know. I really don't have the answer to that question. That's a question I need to think about a lot more.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic neither of us are quite up on.
Yeah, no.
That's all the questions I had. Did you have anything else you wanted to say on it?
Actually, no. I do want to ask whether you or not you think an independent organization is useful in the first place. We kind of briefly touched on some of these sentiments concerning their ability to actually provide proper oversight of these countries. Do you think they're effective enough, or is there a way to possibly make them more effective without giving them too much power?
So you're referring to something like the
IAEA, yes.
And you think they're? I think as long as you sort of have multiple countries kind of coming together to create this organization, it removes a lot of the concerns people might have. I mean, if you sort of have one country kind of having control over this organization, it's not really going to be a good thing, and I don't think any other power would quite like that.
Yeah.
Kind of saying the U.S. is in charge of this independent organization.
Yeah, that would be an issue.
Yeah. The IAEA, who actually
they report
to the UN?
They report to the UN and the Security Council.
Okay.
Both of them, and I think the Security Council is actually also kind of connected to the United Nations as well. But they're the members of the Security Council are much smaller than the members of the UN overall. I think.
Only like 8 countries.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I have to relook that up. But just due to the fact that they're reporting to those larger international bodies, I think you're right.
That's necessary.
Yes. The fact that multiple countries kind of have skin in the game, if you will.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's
multiple
kind of
to a large extent as well.
Yes, like a significant number of countries.
You can't have only one or two sort of.
No, it has to be quite a few.
Independent organizations.
Yes. No, and actually, it's probably useful that you have members, strong members, or that are kind of oppositional in a way.
Sure, yeah, because you don't want to have this feeling that is almost like a bias towards countries like the U.S. or the 100%. European Union countries.
Mm-hmm. And now there will be some of that no matter what.
Sure.
I
think as of right now, most people would probably assume that the Western powers have sort of a little bit of the upper hand.
For now.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Well, I'm sorry. I truly that's something I really do think that China is actually doing a lot better than us on. I mean, their investment in foreign countries and the power they're going to be able to exert over those countries is going to be quite substantial, to the point to where we may not be able to continue our isolationist trend. Yes, at least under our current presidency. That's what seems to be happening.
Well, not just the current presidency, but a sentiment that seems to be shared among
a significant portion of
the population. That actually, I just thought of another great question that might be for another topic.
Okay.
Based on what you said about China, but we won't go into that one.
Oh, goodness.
So I think that's about it. We'll look through if we have any questions.
All right.
We just have questions from Bianca. Not too many people in here today. Nobody wants to hear about this. This is an awful topic.
Yeah.
We fixed that. What if the UN did a nuclear arm buyback? So,
a gun
she
buyback?
Says if the Democratic candidates, like what the Democrats candidates want to do with an assault weapon buyback, apply the same logic to nuclear arms. This is from your fiance, so you might want to be careful.
So no, Bianca,
I'm just joking.
No, I don't. I honestly, just starting out with, I don't think a buyback is a very effective method to enact that kind of denuclearization. Primarily because the United Nations organization is made up of money from a significant number of countries, and basically some of these countries may end up feeling they may feel slighted that they have to contribute to this organization that is paying this other country to give back nuclear arms that they don't even have in the first place. So it may actually, in fact, incentivize these other countries to kind of start nuclear weapons so that they can just sell them to the UN.
Funding themselves off of
exactly
weapons to the UN.
Creating like a pyramid scheme or something.
There's the next MLM.
So I don't. So that being like the first thing. The second thing is just the fact that all the other countries in the UN also may not be interested in doing this, just due to the fact that the United States has so many nuclear weapons, and so does Russia, that they may not want to offer that.
Skewed heavily in their favor.
Yes, they would receive a significant monetary sum from the United Nations that other countries may feel is unfair.
It would almost come across as if more of a trolling question.
Oh.
All right. We took it seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's about it.
I knew Bianca was trolling me on that.
Anything else?
No. Again, y'all can reach us at the.
Yeah, we're about to get to that. But I just wanted to see if you have anything else.
No, I'm good. So housekeeping.
Mention again, we have a link down there for donations. If anybody wants to help, that will continue to be
give
in
us
the
your money.
If anybody wants to help out,
yeah.
Dylan lost that sponsorship from the other,
from on the issues.
And we also have a Twitter that we recently put up. The dog coming out back
it's
here.
at Pluralist Method.
Can you see the dog?
Yes, we have a puppy up here. He's quite important. He's adorable.
Anyways, yep, we have a Twitter, and we'll be posting on that. Mostly Dylan's hot takes. I mean, I might throw a few things out there, but we'll see.
Yeah, I had a little bit to say about a population of a Muslim population living in China that are being oppressed at the moment. They're being placed in re-education camps.
I also wanted to mention that we have started a Twitch.
Yeah.
And I think Wednesdays we'll be moving over there.
Nice.
With our lighter, fun topics like we had this Wednesday with the candidates.
The ones that should take less time.
It should take less time.
It should.
It took the exact same amount of time. This one's actually shorter than the candidates.
How long did this one end up? Oh, this one's just over
20,
hour 20. That's not bad. Yeah. We're getting better.
I mean, that's pretty much what everyone has been so far.
About an hour 20?
122, I think 120.
I thought the first one was one was much longer. Okay.
130.
Oh, not bad. Okay.
There was some dead space at the beginning, things that had to get trimmed off.
Okay.
Probably do that with this one as well, since we have the technical difficulties at the beginning.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so I think we'll be moving over there on Wednesdays, trying to get that going. I think that sort of spread our name throughout the variety of streaming services that exist, and I think the lighter topics might work better over there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can follow us over there at just search for us on Twitch, the Pluralist Method, and we should come up. And I think that's about it. I don't think we have any hints for the next topic.
No.
Probably haven't quite nailed down exactly what we're gonna do, but for the most part, I think we're good here.
Yeah. Look out for us on Wednesday.
Yes.
All right.
Be sure to follow us over there, because we won't have any viewers if not.
Yeah, that'll be something.
All right. Yeah. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
All right. I'm Dylan.
If you're an international viewer, whatever day it is. And I'm Jeremy.
And have a good night.
Signing off.